Shohei Ohtani getting hit by a pitch feels like chaos. Crowd erupts, emotions spike, the game suddenly feels bigger than the scoreboard. But if you slow it down, really break it apart, this wasn't chaos. It was precision failing by the smallest possible margin. And in a matchup like this, that's all it takes to shift everything. Because when you're pitching to Ohtani, you're not just executing a plan, you're operating inside a margin where 1 inch decides the outcome. Early in the game, the situation is exactly where the Mets want it. David Peterson is ahead 0-2. That's control. That's leverage. That's the position where pitchers dictate everything. Against most hitters, this is where the at-bat ends quietly. Against Ohtani, it becomes the most dangerous moment. Peterson goes to a 94 miles per hour sinker inside. The idea is clear. Expand the zone, make Ohtani uncomfortable, force weak contact or a chase. Instead, the pitch runs too far in. It hits him on the shoulder. Immediate reaction. Fans furious. Ohtani steps away, clearly feeling it. And just like that, the narrative shifts from execution to emotion. The obvious story is simple. A pitcher loses command, a superstar gets hit, fans assume intent. Given Ohtani's recent form, leadoff home runs in back-to-back games, it's easy to connect dots that aren't actually there. But the count tells you everything. 0-2. There is no strategic reason to hit him. You're 1 pitch away from finishing the at-bat. Hitting him only resets the inning and puts one of the most dangerous players in baseball on base for free. So if it's not intentional, what is it? It's the risk of pitching inside, amplified by who's in the batter's box. Here's the deeper breakdown. At 0-2, pitchers almost never aim for the strike zone. They aim just off it, just outside, just below, or just inside. That last one, inside, is the most delicate because the margin between effective and disaster is microscopic. You're trying to threaten the hitter without giving him something he can drive. Against Ohtani, that margin shrinks even further because if you miss over the plate, he can end the game in one swing. So pitchers are forced closer to the edge, closer to risk. And that's where this pitch lives. A sinker, by nature, doesn't stay on a straight line. It runs late, it dips. It moves unpredictably if the release point is even slightly off. Peterson's intent was likely correct. The execution wasn't, and that's the difference. Here's the hidden factor most people miss. Okay, so Ohtani's presence is increasing the frequency of high-risk pitches thrown against him. Pitchers aren't comfortable attacking him conventionally, so they live on the edges. They live in uncomfortable zones, and over time, that approach produces more mistakes, not fewer. Not intentional mistakes, unavoidable ones. That's the trade-off of facing a hitter like this. Now, the turning point in this moment isn't the hit by pitch itself, it's how both sides respond. Ohtani doesn't escalate. He shows frustration but quickly resets, takes first base, stays in the game. That matters more than it looks because it prevents the game from spiraling into retaliation or emotional instability. Instead, the Dodgers maintain structure. They continue executing, and that's where the advantage shifts. While the crowd is reacting emotionally, the team is operating logically. That's why they stay in control of the game. For the Mets, the impact is more subtle, but more damaging. They did everything right to get ahead in the count. They executed the early part of the at-bat perfectly, and still the result is Ohtani on base. That's mentally taxing for a pitcher because it reinforces a harsh reality. Against elite hitters, the process isn't enough. The execution has to be exact, and even then it might not be enough. That pressure carries forward into the next pitch, the next hitter, the next inning. For the Dodgers, this is where Ohtani's value extends beyond statistics. Even without a hit, he influences the game. He forces high-risk decisions. He creates stress that impacts pitch selection, command, and sequencing. That stress doesn't disappear after one at-bat. It compounds. That's how innings unravel, even when nothing dramatic happens. Now zoom out. Ohtani's recent stretch, leadoff home runs, consistent early impact, has changed how teams approach the very first pitch of the game. Pitchers are more cautious, more precise, and paradoxically, more prone to mistakes. Because when you try to be too perfect, you lose natural rhythm. That's what happened here. Peterson wasn't reckless, he was too careful. And that slight overcorrection pushed the pitch from effective to dangerous. In the end, this moment feels emotional. Fans see their star get hit and react accordingly. But analytically, it's something else entirely. It's a case study in how small margins define outcomes in Major League Baseball. One pitch, one count, one attempt to be just precise enough, and instead, it becomes a moment that shifts attention, energy, and perception across the entire game, not because of intent, but because at this level, even the right idea, executed just slightly wrong, can hit the most important player on the field. It only took one pitch to change the mood in the entire stadium, because when Shohei Ohtani got hit, the game stopped being about baseball. It became about risk. Top of the first at bat, Dodger Stadium buzzing, expecting another early explosion. Ohtani had just done it twice, back-to-back leadoff home runs over the weekend against the Texas Rangers. Pitch one, damage. That was the expectation. Instead, a 94-mile-per-hour sinker from David Peterson ran inside and didn't stop. It slammed into Ohtani's shoulder. Instant reaction. He steps back, grabs the spot. The crowd erupts, not confusion, anger, because this isn't just a hitter getting hit. This is the player everything revolves around. That's the hook, and the timing made it worse. Peterson was ahead 0-2. That's control. That's leverage. That's a moment where pitchers finish at bats, not lose them. So when that pitch misses that badly, it feels bigger than a mistake. Now the tension spikes. Ohtani had been setting the tone for games before they even started. Lead-off homers, immediate pressure, no time for pitchers to settle in. He wasn't just producing, he was dictating. And suddenly that rhythm gets interrupted violently. That's why the crowd turned, because even if it wasn't intentional, it was dangerous. Here's the turning point. Ohtani didn't escalate. No dugout reaction, just no benches clearing, no retaliation. He stayed in, shook it off, took first base. That restraint changed everything because instead of chaos, the Dodgers responded with control. They didn't chase revenge. They took over the game. That's the difference between emotion and dominance. But the moment still lingers because it exposed something bigger. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, every pitch near Ohtani carries weight. He's not just their best hitter, he's their system. Lineup anchor, momentum starter, pitcher on other nights. Everything runs through him. So when he gets hit, even once, it forces a question. How fragile is all of this? That's the impact. For opponents like the New York Mets, it's a reminder of the margin. Against Ohtani, you can't miss spots. Not inside, not up, not anywhere. Because mistakes don't just become hits, they become moments. Moments that shift energy, crowds, and sometimes entire games. And for Ohtani, it's just another test. Pain, disruption, noise, and still he stays in control. One pitch, one miss, one flash of how quickly everything can change. Because when Shohei Ohtani is in the box, even accidents feel like turning points.